Alright, hello everybody. In this video we are gonna go live with our database. So we've been working on our local machines. That's where our database is, whether it's at home or in the classroom. The database is local to our development computer. But what we want to do is put it up on cPanel, and so that's going to be our live database. So I'm going to show you the steps on how to do that here. So here I'm at localhost right here. I'm looking at my phpMyAdmin, and here's the users table. Now we want to make sure that we go live with this database, the Project X database, not the test one. That's the one that we use for unit testing. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this database here and just make sure it has the right database right there on that slot. And then here I'm just going to look at the users table real quick, and you can see that the passwords are being encrypted. That's something that we added before we get to this point, before we want to go live. So you do want to make sure that you're encrypting passwords before you put anything on your live server. And then if you remember, these are the passwords the same for all of our users. You don't have to do this right now, but something that I would suggest is that you run an update statement to change these passwords to something a little bit better than what we're using for all of our users here. And we can talk about that in class, just let me know. Okay, so you can see here I'm looking at the users table. What I want to do is go back to the entire database, so I'm going to click right here, and then we can choose export. So we're going to export this database to a SQL file. And then hopefully you'll be able to just click the go button right here. You won't, or I'm sorry, the export button. You won't have to configure anything. Just go ahead and click the export button, and that'll download a file called projectx.sql. And then what we're going to do is import this file onto our onto the cPanel server. Alright, so here I am in cPanel. You can go ahead and log into cPanel, and here's the dashboard. Now, before we actually import the database, we need to do a few things. We need to create a database, and then we're also going to have to set up a user account that can log into that database too. Okay, so here, scroll down to the databases section and click on Manage My Databases. And that'll bring up this screen, and now go ahead and enter your database name, which is going to be Project X. Okay, now I've already created this database, so it's not going to let me do this here, but I just want to point out here that your true database name is going to actually be WTC. It's going to be your username right here as a prefix, and then Project X is going to be the database name. So go ahead and click create, and now it's going to give me an error because it's going to say that the database already exists, and that's just because I just created it before, so I already had it here. But what it should say for you, it's going to say database created, and then it's going to give you the name of it right here. So you can see that the name includes that prefix that I was talking about, and it just does that so that everybody gets a unique database name. It just prefixes your username in cPanel with whatever database name you entered. Okay, now you are going to want to copy this database name, so open up a notepad file and paste the database name into it. I've got one right here in my other monitor, and the reason there's going to be a few pieces of information that we need to copy and paste into Notepad. And the reason why is because we're going to use this data that we put into Notepad to set our environment variables, so that when our program runs on the live server, it's going to be pointing to the live database. So along the way, I'll show you when you need to put stuff into Notepad. Okay, go ahead and click the go back button right here, and now what we need to do is create a database user that can log into this database. So here on this screen, manage my databases, scroll on down to, you can see these are the databases that I have set up on my server. I don't know if you have any other ones. I was playing around with another database, but you might have just your Project X database. Okay, scroll on down to this section right here, and this is going to be where we can create a user that can log into the database. So here again, now the username is going to get prefixed with whatever your cPanel username is. Okay, but what you want to type in here is project_x_user, just like that. Okay, and then the true database name is going to include the this prefix right here. Okay, now you need to give it a password, and it should be a strong one because we're going live here. So I'm gonna let my password manager. Let's see here. Here I'll just use the password generator. So go ahead and click on password generator. Okay, and now there's my password. I'm going to change this later. So, but anyways, here's the password that it's generating for me. I'm just going to copy that. And make sure you paste that password into your notepad file that you have open to. So here, in order to get through this, I have to check this box saying yes, I have copied the password and put it in a safe place, and then I can hit generate use password here. Okay, and then it sets my password, and then again paste that into the notepad file under the database name. Okay, and then at this point you can go ahead and click create user, like so. And then it should say that you've created the database user named whatever your cPanel username is, followed by project X user. Okay, copy that and paste it into your notepad file. So those are the pieces of information that we need to connect to our database. We need a database name, a database user account, and a password. So that's why we're storing all this in the notepad file. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that over there in my other monitor, and then click go back. Okay, it should bring you back to the Manage My Databases screen right here. And the next thing that we want to do is we've created a database and we've created a user account, but now what we want to do is associate the user account with the database. So if you scroll down here on this screen, we want to get to here, add user to database. So here you want to select the user that you just created. There's our project X user right there. And then you want to select the database that you want to associate them with. So here, there we go. We want to associate the project X user with the project X database like that. And then we can go ahead and click add here. All right, and now what it's asking us here is what permissions do we want to give this user on the database. Okay, now there's all kinds of permissions here, and we only need a few of them. But in our app, we basically just do selects, inserts, updates, and deletes. So those are the only permissions that we're going to give this user. What that means is that if somebody gets a hold of the password for this and the username, they could log in and they'd just be restricted on the queries that they could run. So here, go ahead and check select, because we do select statements in our app. We want to check update here, insert, and then now this is the one that makes me cringe a little bit because we're giving this user the ability to delete rows. Now, depending on how you manage your database, in some cases people don't like to delete rows, but we're actually doing it just so we can kind of see the full spectrum of CRUD operations. But anyways, these are the permissions that this user is going to have, and then you can go ahead and hit make changes. Okay, and now I think we're done with this step right here. We've created a database, we created a user account, we associated the user account with the database and set the permissions that the user has, the queries that the user can run on that database. So at this point we're ready to open up PHP admin on the live server. So to do that, you want to go back to the cPanel homepage. So click on the tools link here and then scroll on down to the databases section and choose PHP My Admin. And you guys are all familiar with this tool. Okay, here we go. Here are the databases that you have on the server. I think Tag set this up so that you can have up to 10 databases. I'm not sure, which is a pretty generous amount. So anyways, these are, everybody gets this information schema database, and then these are the two other ones that I've created right there, and you can see that it has my cPanel username as a prefix for those tables. Okay, the one that we're interested in right here is the Project X one, so just go ahead and click on that, and you should see that your database shows up right here. And now we should be able to import the SQL file that we exported at the very beginning of this video. So go ahead and hit the import button right here, and then choose File. Okay, and then select that file right here, Project X SQL. Hopefully this will work. And then once you've selected it, you can scroll down here and choose Import. And there we go. We've just moved our database to the live server. So here we've got the users table and the user roles table. Okay, now you stored some information in your notepad file, and we're going to go ahead and put those into our final project. Our final project is what I'm trying to